Four-man bobsledding on speed as Russia's Evgeny Popov looks to continue his winning ways. And later, we'll preview today's Bodine Bobsled Challenge from Lake Placid.
Racing on the edge, it's like a fine line between nice and fire. Racing on the edge, racing on the edge.
The Lake Placid segment of the World Cup Bobsled Tour concludes with the four-man competition from Mount Van Hovenberg. Hi everyone, Tim Singer along with John Morgan on a very busy day of bobsledding in Lake Placid. And here's a look at the four-man favorites and one notable absentee.
Andre Lange, the gold medalist from last year's Torino Olympic Games. Look at this crash in practice. 70 miles an hour with your head upside down. A couple of Lange's teammates are hurt, but not this guy, Evgeny Popov. He's tied with Lange for the World Cup lead. He'll finish ahead of Lange no matter what happens because he's in the race. He won the gold medal last week in Salt Lake. And Pierre Lueders, he's third in World Cup points. More competitive in the two-man than the four, but every once in a while, Pierre gets up on that podium in four-man bobsledding. And now Alexander Zubkov,
Olympic silver medalist, won this race last year.
he's chasing his teammate. He's a little perplexed about results so far. Steve Holcomb, he's got 3 silver medals so far in two-man bobsledding in his Bodine sleds, but he's got a problem in four-man.
And there's Andre Lange. He'll be a spectator for today's competition after winning the two-man event last weekend here on Speed. There's a look at the World Cup standings. Lange and Popov are tied. Steve Holcomb, the top American, in 5th place as they all look to add to the World Cup totals today in search of a season-ending championship. Good crowd on hand here in Lake Placid, and they'll be watching some fierce action on a fierce track.
1,455 meters track, almost a mile long. You can see the start record, Andre Lange, and the track record.
World Championships in 2003 here.
Well, he's got his stamp on a lot of tracks like this around the planet. Lake Placid, but he's not in the competition. So Lake Placid got him.
Would you call this the most feared track or one of the most feared tracks in the world?
I think Altenburg, Cortina, those two are the tracks. There's that fear factor, the man versus the mountain on the top of the track. Here's cliffside curve. A lot of these other tracks, there's no fear on top of the track, and I think that's the difference between the 3 top tracks and the rest is that fear factor. Here's some fear. Devil's Highway. This is where Lange tipped over right here in this curve. Couldn't get it back up. Went into that curve there upside down. Then he went to the bottom part of the track on his head. Now, Labyrinth 3/4 combination. Speed 75 plus right here. Benham's Bend. Big exit downhill into the chicane. Long straightaway. Tricky through here. Big pressure left. 4 G's of force. Remember Dick Trickle tipping over in the Bodine bobsled right here. He tipped over twice in that part of the track. This is a challenge, Tim.
And these bobsledders will take that challenge when we return. It's run number 2 from Lake Placid coming up in a moment as FIBT World Cup continues on Speed. Welcome back to Mount Van Hovenberg, Lake Placid, New York, where World Cup bobsledding is being brought to you by Konica Minolta, the official sponsor of the FIBT World Cup Tour. And earlier today, it was an exciting run number 1 of competition in the World Cup four-man.
The silver medalist from last year's Olympic Games. Remember, the gold medalist has already crashed, not in the competition. Here's the silver medalist in the bottom part of the track, Alexander Zubkov. Horrific crash. He's fine. One of his teammates had to go to the hospital. He will not compete.
Stephen Holcomb, as John mentioned, 3 medals so far this season in 2-man, and he finds himself in the top 5 in today's 4-man competition.
Had a really good run going about 2/3 the way down the track. Lost a lot of speed in the bottom. Here's a surprise. Fabrizio Tosini has never won a World Cup, World Championship medal. And he is in great medal position now with 2 big guns out of the competition. Matthias Hafner, he can smell a podium. In fact, he's always been chasing Zubkov and Lange. This could be his day to shine.
The top 2, the same as they were last week in Park City. Second place from Latvia, Jānis Mīnins.
Well, he won a big medal last week, his second medal ever, a bronze. And the young Latvian looks poised to strike the podium one more time.
But how about this guy? What a season Popov is having in the 4-man.
He was in the shadow of Zubkov the last 4 years. Last week at Park City, though, gold medal. Here in Lake Placid, he's got a big lead.
How big a lead? We check out the standings after run number 1, and Popov and Russia number 1, 0.4 of a second ahead of the Latvians, the Germans, Italy, and USA number 1. There are 3 American sleds in the field, 1 Canadian, Pierre Luders, currently in 7th place, and we'll see them all here. In the second heat of competition, Zubkov will not compete in run number 2. As far as the conditions, it's a fairly mild day here. Remember, still ahead, as we check out the jury, we've got the U.S. National Championships and the Bodine bobsled event, but we're turning our attention to 4-man World Cup bobsledding. You ever remember it this warm, this time of year?
Very mild winter to date.
Austria number 2. To lead things off, Lowacker, the driver.
He's been in this 15th place mode in 4-man.
A couple of 18th places to start this season. This is the country that as recently as 1992 won an Olympic gold medal in 4-man bobsledding.
Ingo Appelt, he retired. Wolfgang Stampler has been their hope. Wolfgang, once in a while, does well. He was in 2nd place in the 2-man Lake Placid event, but fell to 4th in the 2nd run.
World Cup bobsledding, I remind you once again, is a 2-heat combined time competition. So the time you see for Austria 2 is being added on to their first heat time. You need to have 2 clean runs if you want to compete in the sport.
And look at these compelling pictures. I'm telling you, look at the heads bobbing in the back. That's the G-forces. If you think this is easy, I'm telling you, just watch the next 45 minutes of coverage here. These are pictures that just speak for themselves.
Around the finish curve, this is the Rabbit of run number 2, setting the mark. The other sleds will try to beat a 57.59 for the second run, and a 2-heat combined time, putting them into the early lead here in Lake Placid. Much more to come. Stick around for more bobsledding on Speed.
I'd like to offer you a ride down your beautiful track here in Mount Van Hovenberg. The deal.
As soon as he learns how to drive a little better.
I knew there was a catch.
And that was the scene yesterday here in Lake Placid as Jeff Bodine presented a jacket and an offer for a bobsled ride to New York State Governor George Pataki, who didn't accept that offer. But everyone's getting excited about the Bodine Bobsled Challenge. But the four-man World Cup continues here. And this sled comes from Switzerland. Swiss number 2, Danielle Schmidt, the driver.
Schmidt, pretty good result in the two-man competition. He beat his teammate Evil Rube, goes back to Switzerland to their Swiss championships as Swiss number 1 of the World Cup circuit. But the Swiss, they've got a large deck of cards of competitors over there that they'll shuffle up and they'll spit out some guys for the second half of the circuit. And of course, the World Championships are on their home track in St. Moritz. Expect some Swiss athletes to do very well there.
Well, this driver has a pair of 15th places so far this season. That is not going to make noise for the World Championships, especially if Martin Onen comes out of retirement to compete at the Worlds.
I think Martin is in semi-retirement, and in the new year, I think we're going to see him back out.
Well, they have a big lead in that split time. You see the green, minus 1.27. That is because that Austrian sled had so much trouble in run number 1.
Oh, he was late there in that trickle turn, as we like to call it. The Austrians just waved goodbye. And Daniel Schmidt will occupy the leader's box for at least one more sled.
A pad of the sled. Always nice to get down safely no matter where you end up in the final leaderboard. 153.43, John.
Going back to Europe without tipping over. I'm sure he's very happy of that. I mean, believe me, this is man against the mountain first. You get to the bottom and go, oh, by the way, where'd I finish?
Now, you mentioned going back to Europe. That's just what this circuit is doing after this race.
After the new year, it goes to Cortina. Oh, that'll take a toll on you. Eagles, pretty easy track above Innsbruck. 2 weeks of the World Championships in St. Moritz, Switzerland. That's a nice assignment. Then at Cesana, which is where the Torino Winter Olympic Games were last year, up to Winterberg and Sauerland, northern Germany, then down to the south of Germany to Bavaria, Königssee. Nice circuit coming up. It'll all be on speed.
Here is Czech sled number 1.
Ivo Danilevič, Jablonec, Česká republika, a to je můj tým.
Jan Stopláska.
Roman Gomola. Honza Kobián.
13th place, the brakeman, Big Jan Kobian, the veteran of the entire World Cup bobsled circuit. He's been around longer than anyone. There's a look at him.
Lost a little bit of hair in the last 14 years, but let me tell you something. This guy is still a specimen. I mean, he is about 225 pounds of solid. That guy is fit. These Czechs don't get great results like we saw him in the late 90s.
Had a couple of experienced drivers back then, and who was it? Pavel Polanski. That's right.
Pavel Polanski was
Jerry Jamura.
Yeah, and now we're down to this team who, you know, they don't get the starts. They don't know how to drive. I think they just like the circuit, to be honest with you. Of course, we just saw what the circuit's like. Cortina, St. Moritz, Berchtesgaden, Königssee, not so bad at all. Selection of venues there.
Good run at work here for the Czech Republic as they get midway down with a 1500s lead over the sled from Switzerland.
Down to 14, he's in a skid sideways, and you don't want to get these big four-man sleds sideways on the speed part of the track, but he's got 120 kilometers. That was a good sign.
Around the finish, the Czech Republic won. The only Czech Republic sled, 200ths of a second.
200ths of a second, the Czechs hold on. That's 2 fingernails, so take a look at one of your fingernails, double that, and that's what after 2 miles of distance, the Czechs just won by.
So an early lead for Czech Republic 1. A lot of sleds, including 3 American sleds, still to come from Lake Placid. Stick around. A lot more bobsledding coming your way here on Speed.
Racing on the edge. Racing on the edge.
This is the two-time Olympic Village of Lake Placid, New York, World Cup four-man bobsledding. And next up, the sled from Latvia, number 2.
Mihails Arhipovs, Sigulda, Latvia.
Arhipovs comes from Sigulda, as he just mentioned, the site of the only bobsled track in the former Soviet Union.
Just turned 22 years old, and the Latvians are putting a lot of money down on this kid to do well in the future. They need somebody to push Janis Minis, who's in second place right now in this four-man competition.
I don't know if Minins...
Start time, look at that, that's a great start.
I don't know if Minins needs much pushing. He's doing pretty well this year.
Third in Park City, second at the end of this first heat here in Lake Placid. You've got somebody this young and this athletic. Now it's just about trips, coaching, confidence. And confidence, it'd be easy to get confidence on the easier tracks, but here in Lake Placid, this is a challenge. Look at the heads slapping around.
How they set up those runners differently for different situations.
Well, runners are about rocks. You know, when you put the runners face to face, you're only going to see an inch of the runners that come in contact with the ice. And some people like the rock a little bit different, longer, more forward, more back for different tracks. But you only get 2 sets of runners to work with now. They've standardized the rules of runners in the FIBT the same way they do in NASCAR with tires.
Latvia, too, with a 1/10 of a second lead over the Czech Republic at the end of the run. They actually lost quite a bit of time on the bottom part of the track.
He'll live another day. He's in first now. I don't know how many sleds he's going to move up on, but this is a guy you're going to see a lot of.
And quickly going at the top here, it's USA number 3. Stefan Bosch, the driver, alongside Ben Fogel, Tim O'Meara, and Jeremy White.
Push bars out, came in.
10th place after run number 1. This team's still getting their feet wet.
Well, they don't get the start time. Stefan Bosch is the master of high speed and part of the bottom part of the track. He's 3,500s down now. For most teams, that's no chance. You might bring it back a couple tenths, but Bosch in the first couple World Cups of the year has shown everybody. On the bottom part of the tracks, he gets these Bodine sleds flying and always ranks up there in the top speeds. So at the next clock, he's down to 24. He's brought it back 1100s.
Yeah, that's a little too.
Oh, that's huge speed, though. That's 3 kilometers better than the Latvians. That's huge speed. This is what Stefan Bosch, the former junior world champion for Germany, now living in Park City, does.
Across the finish, can they hold on to the lead?
Wow.
I'm perplexed.
Look at Scheimer's
I
expression.
think Ryan Scheimer's surprised. Where did they find all that time at the bottom?
Half second of time on the bottom part of the track. Nobody does that. That speaks volumes of the eyes and hands that Stefan Bosch has got. He knows how to point these Bodine sleds in the right direction. Great driving. Watch the way you come through the chicane here. This is the graveyard of time. You'll see nobody come through this better than that right there. Look at the speed. Wow. Couple. Almost a full kilometer better than everybody else. And Brian Scheimer says, we'll take that.
Well, the USA will continue its interest to the top of the track. We check out the standings with 1 American in the lead, but another is getting ready to go. When we return, it's USA 2 and Mike Kahn. So stick around. A lot more bobsledding coming your way from Lake Placid.
Racing on the edge.
Here in Lake Placid, Mike Kahn, USA 2, getting ready at the top. Earlier, Kahn made a special presentation.
Jeff Bodine, I want to thank you for your commitment and persistence and efforts over the years in making these sleds the fastest sleds in the world. Can't thank you enough. But there's something more. I've got a check I want to donate to the Bodine Bobsled Project for $10,000, and I wish I could take credit for it, but it comes from a lot of good people in Northern Virginia that helped raise this money, and hopefully we can continue to build these sleds and make them even better over the next 3 years. I just can't thank you enough for your commitment. I know it's a small drop in the bucket in our sport because it's so expensive, but because of you, you've inspired me to want to contribute, and hopefully other people will step in and step up too. So thank you very much, and let's get moving.
Thank you, Mike. We want to thank you for your commitment, all the athletes' commitments to this sport. This is a tough sport, and a lot of work goes into it. And this check will go towards building some new and better Bodine bobsleds for all the American athletes, and get to Vancouver, see you guys up on that medal podium. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Jeff.
And that was just moments ago, earlier today before the race. Now Mike Kahn looking to compete into the top 10. What a tremendous presentation that was.
Kahn,
Very classy.
Very astute. He's a National Guardsman. Kahn won a bronze medal with Brian Scheimer at the 2002 Olympic Games, was the American sled that broke the ice, broke the 46-year medal drought. Mike just made a major mistake, though, on a curve 1. He's got a good bunch of athletes behind him. They're all what he calls rookies. Jesse Peckham, Alex Sprague, Teron Johnson. These are great athletes that just, you know, they got to settle in, work as a team, and they'll eventually start to compete.
Sprague, actually, the number 3 man on this sled is Kahn's 2-man brakeman. It's interesting where sometimes the brakeman of 2-man doesn't break into 4-man sleds. He rides in the middle.
Well, especially when you're 6'5" or 6" like Sprague is, you put him up into the middle so he can get into a better aerodynamic position. Mike's had a pretty rough run here, and at the bottom part of the track, he's going against his teammate.
So it'll
Stefan
Bosch or Kahn. One will crack the top 10.
Whoa,
by 100th of a second, it's USA 3 and Team Bosch that will have their best result of the young season. Kahn will move back at least 1 spot.
Whoa. Mike isn't having the first part of the year he had last year. He won a silver medal at the 2-man event in Lake Placid. A great promise. They pulled the hamstring in early January. Didn't make the Olympic team because of that injury. But Mike Kahn will be back for another day. There's the speed. Bosch at the top. Kahn not far behind. 2 Americans separated by 100th of a second. Length of your fingernail.
Back to the top we go for our next sled. The first of 2 from Italy.
Simone Bertazzo, pieve di Cadore, Italia. Questo è il mio team.
Maio Andreas.
Samuele Romanini.
Giorgio Morbidelli.
Expect these guys to make some noise in a few weeks when we come to you from Cortina d'Ampezzo, Italy. Their teammates are in 3rd place after run number 1. There's the leader from the USA.
You know, and that, just want to tell you that $10,000 that Mike Kahn got, that's from the people in Northern Virginia that have a big golf tournament for Mike every year that raised that money. So that was that'll go in to benefit all of the American athletes. That's what's nice about that.
People just don't realize when you hear about these baseball contracts people sign for millions of dollars, the money made on the PGA Tour. Deservedly so, obviously. They don't sign lucrative contracts, but in bobsled, they are constantly just trying to reach for whatever they can get.
It's an expensive sport. Most of the time, you got to go out and raise your own money to buy your own sled. Not if you're an American athlete. If you reach the upper echelon, the Bodine Project provides the equipment. Every single sled in the American program, 14 of them total, are all Bodine Project sleds on the World Cup circuit.
And suffice it to say, not a lot of high-paying clothing deals in this sport.
No, these athletes struggle. They compete for passion and love of the sport. And this Italian right now, Bertazzo's got a pretty good run going. 4/10 ahead of the American sleds at the bottom. And he won a bronze medal here in Lake Placid last year.
That's right. Hasn't had a great year this year so far. He crosses the finish line with the lead after an 11th and a 16th place to start the season. He will be in the top 10 here in race number 3.
Also remember, there's no Zubkov from Russia and Laga from Germany in the field. Both of those guys have crashed out. That's just shocking. That is just amazing to me that the gold medalist and silver medalist from last year's Olympics crashed.
Gaining a little bit of respect of this track from everyone else.
Well, here's everybody else making it down. Look at the airborne runners. Look at these pictures. Look at the head slapping. I mean, I can't tell you what these brakemen, the guys in the back, look at the heads bounce. Look at the speed. Bertazzo with the best speed at that part of the track, but on the bottom part of the track, Stefan Bosch still has the best speed. When you see the sled disappear to the left side of your screen like that, that's a lot of sliding across the ice.
Action continuing here in Lake Placid. This is the second Austrian sled. It's Austria #1, the driver Wolfgang Stampfer. 8th place after run #1.
Wolfgang Stampfer, Innsbruck, Austria.
And John, you know what intrigues me is so far this season in 4-man, the sleds such as this one that have finished, say, 8th or 9th have finished every race, 8th, 9th, 10th. Those that have been 15th have been 15th, 14th, maybe 16th, and the ones in the top 5 are in the top 5. There really hasn't been that much variety. It's just like the good, the better, and the best.
Yes, but I'm very impressed with the Latvians, Janis Minis.
Yeah, and they've done it all season.
Yeah, and they didn't do anything hardly last year.
Right, a lot of changes over from last year to this year.
And Evgeny Popov, very impressed with him. Stampfer was in second place in this track in the 2-man. So there's been some shuffling of the cards. Longa and Zubkov crashing, though, still has really got my attention.
You still are pretty fixated on that, and why not?
That's the old days of bobsledding in the 60s and 70s when, you know, you'd go out and watch whoever made it to the bottom usually was the winner.
The 4th run of a world championship might have a couple of people moving from 10th to 3rd.
In those days, different sport than now. Look at the way those heads snap down there.
Yeah, that's aerodynamic time lost.
Well,
we'll see how they do. You have 1500ths of a second behind the Italians.
The Italians like that. They're good finish for them. There's another Italian sled coming up. They're going to have 2 Italian sleds in the top 8. This is going to be a great day for the Italians, who really haven't had a lot of results in the last couple of years. Wolfgang Stampfer. Here's the line. They're both drifting left to right. Stampfer got a lot more problems, though. You can see the runners. Stampfer made some mistakes there. He lost by 1500ths.
One of the greatest 2-man pilots of all time will be taking on the 4-man track when we return. Pierre Luters of Canada. This was the scene at last year's World Cup with USA 1 pilot, now retired, Todd Hayes.
He told his team, watch out, curve 3, I'm not going to steer. Oof. And when you don't steer, sometimes you're going for fast times. But you talk about racing on the edge. This is a good example of racing on the edge right here.
One crew member, I believe that was Garrett Hines, fell out of the sled. He was okay. Everyone was okay. And, of course, Hayes went on to compete at the Olympics.
Pierre Luters, Edmonton, Alberta.
As did this man, as he has for the past 4 Olympics. Pierre Luters has won 2 Olympic medals for Canada.
Gold medal in Nagano in 1998. Silver medal last year in Torino. 4th in Salt Lake City 2002. And that was, you know, we don't always see him in a great mood. Here's the Italians, the leaders at the bottom of the track. Bertazzo
On the sled with Pierre Luders, Ken Kotick, David Bissett, and Lascelles Brown, 7th place after run number 1.
Very good athletes. He's got a lot of confidence in this team.
Great start of 4:99. So just like that, they have a big lead over the Italians.
Ken Kotick was born in Rama, Saskatchewan, now lives in Calgary.
0.4 of a second out in front now.
He's been in that ice house in Calgary, training a lot. That's why Luders selected him to be on the team. Luders doesn't have as good a four-man skills as he has in the two-man, but his four-man skills, a lot of people would take, let me tell you.
And sometimes this man, more than anyone, has a way of creating magic in run number 2. Look at that. Just a couple of bumps, as you always say, John, at those good speeds, it's not going to hurt you that much.
He didn't slide across the ice that bad there, had great speed. Look at the heads into the finish. Pierre Luders trying to move up the ladder, has a great run.
56.23, fastest run of the heat, 152.21, the two heat combined time. So Luders, Kotick, Bissett, and Brown, Canada 1 move into the lead, can do no worse than the top 7.
99. Yeah, they're 99. That was their start time. First thing the brakeman and crew members want to know when they get out of the sled, what was my start?
That's what they prepare all week for.
Look at these pictures. Look at the air time the runners get. Now watch the way the sled goes to the left here. Look at that, almost perpendicular. Look at the speed, bottom part of the track. Look at this, David Bissett. That's what G-forces will do. They'll cause a little bit of nosebleeds once in a while, and he had a full face helmet on. There's no way that anybody could have hit him.
We go back up to the nosebleed section, the top of the track, Switzerland.
Schweiz.
Now, I mentioned this last week, John, in the four-man. This guy has a knack for falling back several spots in the second run, at least so far this season.
Consistency. This isn't about one heat, it's about 2.
That sled looks a little beat up.
Crashed in Calgary in training. They haven't had it back in Switzerland to repair it. They will. You don't see the Swiss sleds looking like that too often. All the sponsor decals have been taken off. They've been trying to fix that sled up. And he hasn't done well. His start time's not what he usually gets, 5:06. Usually he's down there challenging Pierre Luders. I think the team, you start off with a crash like that. It's not the way to start the season.
As they move toward
A little bit of a correction there. This will be very close at this next one. Noah, 1100ths off the pace of the Canadians.
Evil Root didn't have a very good World Cup tour today. He's got 1 medal in Calgary.
Fell out of the medals in the four-man last week.
In Park City, he faltered back a couple places in the two-man. Four-man is sliding there, plus 16. He's going to need 121 plus speed to have a chance. That's not enough.
Wow, he was very clean, though, in the chicane. So
he might get a few hundreds back, but I think it's going to keep Pierre Luders in the leader's box. Look at the heads bobbing. That's the G-forces.
Around the finish, Canadians watch the Swiss cross 1100ths back. So it will be top 6 now for Canada.
Second best time of the heat. He'll drop 1 spot. I think we're going to hear a little bit more from Evil Rug at the World Championships on his home track at St. Louis. Remember that name.
Yeah, that was the first hit we had all year, for sure.
Canada won the leader, Switzerland. Who's got the straight line through here?
They both were okay. Actually, the Swiss didn't touch at all, but it's all about speed.
Luders had the better speed. That was at the entrance to that chicane.
And 5 sleds remain. There's a look at the standings. The Canadians on top, but the USA getting ready. It'll be driver Steve Holcomb when we return to the track at Lake Placid. Still ahead later today on Speed, the U.S. National Bobsled Championships and, of course, the Bodine Bobsled Challenge. It promises to be fast, maybe dangerous, and definitely a lot of fun. The top NASCAR and NHRA drivers will be on hand to take to the ice. But we continue the World Cup four-man competition. Next up, USA #1. Driver Steve Holcomb, not as proficient in the four-man as the two-man.
Well, the four-man here is difficult. I mean, the track here is really difficult in the four-man. It's built different, and I have to personally change my own lines and the way I drive to get down in a four-man. And you know, we've been doing pretty well in practice. It wasn't great, but it wasn't by any means bad. So I think we could do well. You know, I'm not looking to beat Andre. He's one of the best by far. I think he pulled out, but you know, regardless, now it gives us an opportunity to get closer to a win. But I think all in all, we have a good push crew of guys ready to go. Had some crashes here in training, and it's a little intimidating, but we're ready to do what we got to do. It's our home track, so we got to step up to the plate.
And that push crew of which Holcomb speaks is brakeman Brock Kreitzberg and pushers Jamie Moriarty and TJ Burns.
Moriarty's father played in the NFL. Saw the bobsledding in the Olympics in Torino. He's hooked. Good athletes. And there's not a very rough ride so far. He's got the second best time. That's not a good sign because he had a good start. Had the second fastest time all the way down the track in the first run until the bottom part of the track where he fell to fifth. And
now he's losing time at each split.
Really low there and shady. That's steering. You know, it's ironic that he used to be a great four-man driver and suffer in the two-man. Now he's got 3 silvers in the two-man, and he's having problems in this big four-man. The sleds fly, and he's just not comfortable in this four-man yet. Look at the heads in the back slapping.
Steve Holcomb, Park City, Utah, crosses the finish line and falls back 2 spots.
5th best time.
So he'll be looking at a 7th place finish here in the four-man after 3 silver medals in the two-man. The Canadians hold on to the lead.
A couple new guys on the crew. TJ Burns and Moriarty, but this is where he made his mistake. Right here, you can't skid up top like that, hit the wall. Doesn't sound like much, but that's worth 15, 20 hundredths. And here's the speed. You can see Holcomb way off the pace. That's because he didn't have any speed because of this mistake out of curve 1.
And he knows it right now as he checks out the sheet with the splits all of the way down. These drivers are very tuned in. Surprise, 4th place here for this sled.
Fabrizio Tosini, Busseto Parma, Italy. Questo
Ivan Giordani. Mirko Turri.
Just on the outside looking in at a medal as the Canadians watch down at the bottom. And as you mentioned earlier during the first heat highlights, Tosini has never captured a medal for Italy.
He's got a 10/100ths lead on our Canadian friends at the bottom, Team Pierre Lutters. He got beat by 900ths at the start in the first run.
To show you how big that first run performance was so far this season, this Italian sled has finished 17th, then 13th. They can have a top 4 if they have the lead down at the bottom.
Well, he gives up a lot of time at the start. On those other 2 tracks, he can't overcome that with driving skills. Here in Lake Placid, it's a driver's track. You're going to have a deficient start time and then turn around and have a chance to be good at the bottom. And Tosini, who's never won a medal, is one of the biggest heats of his life right here. Plus 11.
They had a problem in the first run with the push bar of their sled.
And that push bar's out again. Plus 11 to plus 5. Watch out if this push bar hits something. This is dangerous. Our camera crews, I'm sure, are moving back away from the track. It's down to plus 1. This is strange. And the push bar's in. He must have hit there.
Now, what did that cost him in terms of time?
We'll find out. He was even at the last clock. He had big speed. This is a very strange run. An Italian team who's never won a medal. He could put himself in position to have a chance for one.
Yes, 1100s ahead of the Canadians. But look at the bedlam up above in the Italy camp.
This is pretty shocking. Now there's still 3 sleds yet to come, but this is his best finish ever.
I don't know how they could pull that off with the push bar out, you know, in the sport where aerodynamics is everything.
Well, at the high-speed part of the track, that popped out at 70 miles an hour. He won by 1100ths. He might have won by 2500ths. Here's where it comes out. The G-forces in curves 7 and 8. Watch these pictures. Airborne runners. Now the switch, the other 90 degrees. Look at the way, look at them. Perpendicular these athletes are. The push bar comes out.
That's why the theme song is Racing on the Edge.
You got it. And then here it comes. He gets knocked back in. Doesn't look like a little spray comes up there. He had great speed on the bottom part of the track. And look at the Italian athletes, the women's team at the top. This is a lot. 4th place, of course. 2 of the top dogs aren't in the competition, but that doesn't matter. He's got a chance for a medal.
3rd place, Germany won. They have that distinction, Germany won, with
Matthias Höpfner, Riesa, Deutschland.
driver Matthias Höpfner. They are Germany won because Andre Lange pulled out of this competition.
Andreas Baruco, Andreas Porth, Mark Kone doesn't get good starts, 5:13. 5:13 in the first run. Doesn't get good starts, but boys, he got the good eyes in here. In quickly in the sled. 5:08. Still, that's 500s better than his first run. That's good sign for the Germans. He's carrying the German hopes right now. It'd be shocking not to see Germany in a 4-man medal. And it's just, I don't know the last time we didn't see the Germans winning a medal in 4-man competition.
Back 10 years ago when Christoph Lange dominated the sport, he wasn't necessarily the most liked guy on the circuit. Now Germany has 3 drivers everyone loves, friendly with everyone.
Great, but it's not friendly now. If he gets to the bottom at this pace, he was -11 to -9 to -2. Now it's +3.
Wow.
Only chance he's got is 121.5 or so. Doesn't have the speed. Probably going to lose more down here at the bottom. There's going to be some celebration at the bottom if the Italians win. Josini has never won a World Cup medal. He's been on the circuit for 11 years.
Will it be Germany? Will it be Italy? It is Italy with the World Cup medal, and look at them go nuts at the bottom.
Germany is back one. And chance of not winning a medal in World Cup competition, Tim, we might have to go back into the last century to find that. Listen to the Italians.
We're looking at the long faces of the Germans. We're hearing the happy voices from Team Italia.
Watch this number 2 guy's helmet. That's Mark Kone. Look at the head. Look at those heads moving around in there. That's not a good sign. Too much movement in the sled.
The final 2 sleds are set to go when we come back, but for the time being, the Italians celebrate in the leader's box. Tim Singer and John Morgan back here in Lake Placid. 2 sleds remain gunning for the gold medal. This is the second to last sled from Latvia.
Jānis Mīns, Kuldīga, Latvija.
Coming off of the biggest race of his still young career, John.
Look at the concentration. That's what both Latvian pilots do. They look like that from the side, put their visors down, and now hit it. This is your pedal to the metal in bobsledding as compared to NASCAR. This is your horsepower, top of the track. It's human-driven powered, and Minnis, silver medal, bronze medal last week, his 2nd medal ever.
He was in the silver medal position after run 1, just like today.
Last week, though, had the field with Lange and Zubkov in it. Now it's without Lange and Zubkov. He's chasing Popov. A good run here. Wow. Shocking. Italians at the bottom.
700ths of the lead through Shady 2. This exit's always important, and it's clean.
That means he's lost some time back. He's going to need some clean lines. Down to 5. Anything around 122 kilometers will give him a chance. Doesn't matter. He's close to that 122 mark. Up to 5.
Remember, this is a sport that sometimes sleds are separated by 1/100th of a second. This figures to be just about as close. The Latvians cross 1100ths. So they opened it up a little bit at the bottom, and another medal for Latvia. Sandis Prūsis, the head coach and former World Cup champion, pleased at the top.
This is a 25-year-old pilot. The other one's 22.
A little bit of a future, huh?
We're seeing some Latvians here. The Italians, oh, come on, you guys, be happy. There's Prūsis, who ironically coached the Italians last year.
Right, right.
There's our Jānis Minnis.
his business is done. But
silver medal no matter what, and it could be better.
It could be better, but this sled will really have to falter. Russia, #1, driver Evgeny Popov. They have a big lead, 0.4 of a second over the Latvians after run #1. And this is what happened last week. Talk about big leads.
He's never won a medal in his life till 2 weeks ago in Calgary. He won a silver. Then he won a gold here in Park City last week. Beat Andre Longa, which is an insurmountable task. And here he is again, atop of the leaderboard. There's the Canadians congratulating everybody. It's
a lot of camaraderie always in this sport.
Great camaraderie, especially when you see young guys like this put their stamp on. And here comes the biggest story of the year in four-man bobsled. Look at that start time, the powered explosion. Stapushkin, his brakeman, used to slide with Zubkov.
You've seen a 4.99, another 4.99. They match it to the 100th of a second. Their run-1 start, and that certainly bodes well, pending a clean ride down.
Now right here is where his teammate crashed. He's through there. This guy had a bad crash in Altenburg in November of 2002, really
never
recovered.
That shook him up for several years.
He didn't recover. He was the better Russia #1 pilot. And he's been in the second seat. Look at that. Wow. That curve 7 and 8 and really stretched the articulation on these sleds. He's flying though. Look, and he's blowing the field away. Speed, 121.4, lost the speed back, but he's got so much time in the bank. This is another goal for Popov. This is some story.
Look at that sled, the big Russian sled, on its way to its second consecutive World Cup four-man victory by a half a second. Russia won, capturing the gold medal here in the World Cup of Lake Placid. Latvia second, and the Italians in third.
Jenny Popov goes back to Russia with 2 golds and a silver. Never won a medal in his life. I would have bet a lot of money against him winning anything before the season started.
Win he does by a huge margin over Latvia, Italy, Germany, and Canada. A lot of nations represented in the front page of the leaderboard. A lot of diversity in this sport. As we check out the rest of the standings, USA #1, Stephen Holcomb ends up in 7th place, and I'm headed down to the finish to interview Holcomb. When we return, much more from Lake Placid. Stick around.
World Cup bobsledding on speed brought to you by Konica Minolta, the official sponsor of the FIBT's World Cup bobsleigh and skeleton tours. Great weekend of racing in Lake Placid. Evgeny Popov, now the World Cup leader. Janos Minis of Latvia, what a big surprise. Andre Longa falls to 4th. He can compete because of the crash. Stephen Holcomb still holding on to 5th. Mike Kahn in 10th. Let's go down to Tim Slinger, who's talking to Steve Holcomb.
Thanks very much, John. And Steve, a 7th place finish here, and our commentator John Morgan has been saying throughout today's race that you used to be a better 4-man pilot, now a better 2-man pilot. How does it stack up in your mind?
Well, actually, I would have to say that my 4-man hasn't really changed a whole lot. I'm just all of a sudden really good in 2-man. I'm actually having some of my best results here in 4-man this year. It's been 5th, 6th, and 7th, so I think that's better than I did all last year going into the Olympics. So I'm still pretty happy with the 4-man. You know, it's a harder, it's different. We've been messing with the 2-man sleds, and it's that seems starting to click a little bit. And they're going to take my 4-man after this race and do some tweaks to it, see if we can make it faster like we did the 2-man. So we'll see what happens in Europe. It's going to be fun.
This is the USA, but does the Lake Placid track, the challenges here, really offset any home track advantage?
Definitely. It's I mean, we've been down this 30, 40 times already this year, and the other teams have only been down twice before the race, maybe 3 times. And it's such a difficult and technical track that you know, it's more of a survival. I mean, it's just a matter of getting down. Like, people get out and down, they don't even care about their time. They're like, oh, I got a time. You know, it's pretty difficult, and it's still fun and challenging, which makes it a good track to train on, because we know a little bit of the quirks and how it works. But yeah, it's definitely not much of a home track advantage. So it's
you'll be facing those same challenges next time in Cortina. We'll see you over there.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Back to you, John.
Great weekend of bobsled racing in Lake Placid. The United States dominated the skeleton. They won first, second, third in the men's, gold and silver in the women's, two-man bronze, silver medal for Holcomb, bronze medal in the women's bobsled. Here at four-man, they get shut out of a medal, but great story with Andre Long and Zubkov crashing, the gold medalist and silver medalist from last year's Olympics. Tells you how tough this track is. But the Italian Tosini wins his first medal ever. Coming up next is our Bodine Bobsled Challenge. You aren't going to want to miss that. For my FIBT television team, I'm John Morgan. Thanks for watching. See you shortly on Speed.
Coming up on Speed, Olympic champion Andre Longa tries to come back from a crash 2 days ago in practice. And later on, we'll preview the Jeff Bodine Bobsled Classic next on Speed.
Racing on the edge. It's like a fine line between nice and finer. Racing on the edge. Racing on the edge.
The FIBT World Cup season continues in a very non-winter-like looking winter sports capital of the world. We're in beautiful Lake Placid. Two-man bobsled competition. The athletes are getting ready at the top, and here are the front runners heading into this third World Cup race.
Andre Longa dominated the events in Calgary and Park City, winning both two-man competitions. He's our World Cup leader. Big surprise of the season so far. Stephen Holcomb, Brock Kreitzenberg, the United States, they've got 2 silver medals to date in their Bodine sleds, and they are the big surprise so far. Pierre Luters, not surprising to see him on the podium with 2 bronze medals in the first 2 events. Surprising that they're only bronze. Ivo Rube, he's got 1 bronze medal to date. He's got all of the Swiss nation hopes on his shoulders, and he needs to perform here in Lake Placid. Alexander Zubkov, not so proficient in the first 2 events. The silver medalist and four-man from last year's Torino Olympics needs to pick it up.
And so after 2 races, of course, it's Longa sitting atop the World Cup standings ahead of Holcomb Luters. As you see, the big names holding down the top 5 spots entering race number 3. So those are the favorites, the ones to keep an eye on in today's two-man race. Tim Singer along with John Morgan. We're getting ready for the action along with the drivers. And John, of course, Andre Longa, the big name in this sport, but he had some big action during training.
Well, Park City and Calgary are 2 very, very easy bobsled tracks to get down on top of the track. Everybody's walking around. How'd you do last night? Where'd you go for dinner? How's your family? Everybody's in a good festive mood. Here in Lake Placid, you go on the top of the track, everybody's quiet. This is a very challenging bobsled track, and when the best guy in the world tips over in training, that really sends a message to all the competitors that this is a man against the mountain.
So Andre Longa, he will be racing, but he had that great crash during training. And right now, let's take a closer look at this Lake Placid track from start to finish.
This track was built in the late 1990s for the inaugural Winter Goodwill Games. Pierre Luters of Canada, track record, start record. That's at the 2003 World Championships here in Lake Placid. Very challenging bobsled track. Up at the top, start. I can't tell you enough. In NASCAR, you got horsepower. Bobsledding, you got human power. Right here, 4 athletes. 2 athletes got to jump in the sled. And now the drive lines are gone. First curve, no steering here. It's almost trying to lean the sled out of the curve. Now you go to a cliffside, three-corner combination. The old track across the way had an old cliffside turn. Now you go into a white-face turn. Used to be a white-face turn in the old track built for the 32 Olympics. Now they come into what they call the Devil's Highway, and right here in this curve coming up is where Andre Lange succumbed to the pressure of the Lake Placid track. He crashed here. Now into shady, big slingshot effect to the bottom part of the track. Three-corner combination called the Labyrinth. Every track's got to have one. Now into a Benham's Bend, named after Lake Placid native Stan Benham, who won 2 silvers at the Oslo Winter Games in '52. Chicane, a nice straightaway, great visual for our cameras. Now into a lot of pressure, 4Gs. This little trickle turn down here. This is where Dick Trickle crashed 2 times in the Bodine Challenge last year. Now uphill section of the track. Can't lose any time there into the finish.
When we return, run number 2 of the 2-man bobsled coming up. Again.
Racing on the edge. It's like a fine line between nice and fine.
Welcome back to Lake Placid. As always, World Cup Bobsled is being brought to you on Speed by Konica Minolta, the official sponsor of the FIBT World Cup Bobsled Tour. First run took place earlier today on Mount Van Hovenberg.
Steve Holcomb in his Bodine sled. Not in the second position he's been in the last couple of weeks. He's going to have to fight from behind. He's in 5th place, not far out of a medal.
Very tight amongst the 2, 3, 4 positions right now.
Pierre Lueders, he's been coming back in the first 2 events of the year. Terrible up top of the track in the first heat. He'll be the first one to tell you he wasn't happy, but he's still looking for a podium finish.
When is Lueders ever happy? Matthias Hoffner of Germany, inconsistent results so far this season, but he's been in the top 5 throughout. Very clean in this tricky lower part of the course, putting him in 3rd place after run number 1.
He was fast on the bottom part of the track. Here's the surprise of the day. Wolfgang Stampfler from Austria gives up a lot of time at the start, but Wolfie's got some good eyes and hands, and he had a perfect run. He's in 2nd place. It's a shocker.
And leading the way after 2 victories so far this season, after a crash 2 days ago during training, Lange and Kuska, Germany 1, come right back.
He hasn't lost a heat yet of 2-man bobsledding. Who could stop him?
Yeah, that's what we'll find out as run number 2 unfolds here, but for the time being, the standings show the Germans 0.2 of a second ahead of Austria. Then a Germany, Canadian, and USA sled. In fact, there are 3 American sleds, 1 Canadian sled in today's field. As you can see, the others who will be running in reverse order here in run number 2. As for the conditions here, New Year's time in Lake Placid, not the snow they were hoping for, but cool temperatures and a little flurry in the air. They may be skiing at Whiteface Mountain before too long. Who knows?
They are skiing.
That's true. They are blowing a lot of snow.
Our first competitors way in the back of the pack. This is Switzerland number 1. And these Hildebrand sleds run great on tracks in Park City and Calgary, Innsbruck, Winterberg, those little artificial luge tracks, as I call them.
That may be, John, but we featured this fella in our favorites, and here he sits back in 16th place.
Well, remember, last year, Martin Annan, the Swiss pilot who wins medals constantly, he crashed in this track in the second run. Look at that. There's an example of you can't do that up top in that straightaway. He's got 25 to 35. That's relevant to his start time, but you can't make a mistake like that and be competitive. That's why he was back at 16th place in the first run. He doesn't belong here. He belongs up in 6th at the worst.
And I remind everyone once again that World Cup Bobsled is a 2-heat competition, combined time. First run added to the second run. And right now the Swiss have a 0.3 of a second lead over a Latvian sled that has already come down the track.
Through the trickle turn, as we like to call it. And the Latvians on the left, they know they're gone. There's the green time will pop up, 43/100ths of a second.
So a 57.16 for the second heat. I have a good feeling that will hold as the fastest time for several more sleds here.
He's a second 16/100ths faster. That tells you how bad of a first run he had. This is one of the few tracks where you can have a disparity in time like that. Usually they're within 5, 10, 15/100ths of their first to second runs. He's a second 16/100ths faster, and he had this mistake. He must have had a mistake all the way down the track in the first run to do this. That's not the way you want to travel across the ice. Look at the runner tips moving. He's trying to get control of the sled. Here, quite a second run, but a really bad first run for Evil Root.
One sled down, the first American set to go. Not corresponding. Bobsledding's long arm of the law, the jury. Terry Godzowski of Canada right there in the middle, former Canadian bobsled pilot. And the first USA sled now set to go. This is USA number 2, Stefan Bosch, the driver.
Tim O'Mara, the brakeman. Now, they have not a very good start time. Bosch can really drive the sled.
Bosch originally from Germany, now making his home in Park City, nearby O'Mara's hometown of Salt Lake City.
O'Mara's also from Salt Lake, and not a real big guy. He's only 185 pounds. Usually the brakemans are saying, you know, they're pretty big guys, and O'Mara's not. But Bosch got great eyes and hands. He's plus 14. That's all relative to the start. He got beat by 1600 at the start by Evil Root. And we'll see what type of lines that he can carve out down this track. Now, Bosch, former junior champion for Germany back in the mid-90s and to the United States.
Yeah, John.
Look at this. He's down to plus 9.
Has struggled to crack the top 15 so far this season for the USA. So maybe just learning the new program.
No. He's got a start time issue with 2-man. Great pilot. This is going to be close.
Swiss watch, Americans cross. And the USA is in first by 100th of a second.
Wow, what a comeback. I mean, for a deficient start time, you know, very few people can come back from that.
We see it in skeleton a lot, but in bobsled, it's just not as sure a thing.
This just shows you how a great track really brings out the best in some great drivers. And Bosch is a great driver. His nemesis is the 50-meter start time. That's why he hides that a little bit better, does a little bit better in the 4-man competition. But that guy's got great eyes and hands. Look at this through the chicane. The Bodine sled comes straight at us. Look who's got the best speed. This is what I talk about. You will not see many people come through there as clean as Stefan Bosch just did. And look at the coaches. Bill Tavares to the left, Brian Scheimer on the right. They know that was a great run.
Well, as surprising as the Swiss being out of the top 15 after the first run is this sled.
Зубков Александр, Брас Иркутск, Россия. Это моя команда.
Туренков Дмитрий.
14th place for Russia, number 1. Now, of course, this is a great 4-man pilot, an Olympic medalist, Zubkov, as the Americans watch. But Zubkov has also acquitted himself very well in the 2-man the last several years. Not so this year, John, with a new brakeman.
New brakeman. Of course, they lost their leader, Valera Lenchenko, passed away suddenly in April. And it's ironic because the other Russian, Popov, was always in this position with reversal
having a breakout
fortune. And Popov won the gold medal in 4-man and the silver medal in 4-man up in Calgary. So he's got a gold and silver so far in 4-man. And Zubkov is struggling to find himself, lost a lot of his team. he must have had a horrific first heat like Ivo Rube did to be back in this position. You know, we always joke that the Russians don't do well. They're going right back to Siberia, where he's from. And, you know, of course, silver medal last year in the Torino Olympics, that was then. What are you doing for me today?
Well, you said it at the beginning of the show, John. This track, and the track has challenges right at the start, and if you don't make it through those successfully, your run is pretty much doomed.
And then down below, you got some really big eyes, let me tell you. This is a man against the mountain. You get out of his sled and say, what was my time? Because there is a lot of tension for a person and a team to come down this track. The Americans know that they're done. Zukov with a half-second lead. You expect this out of him.
Right.
You expect that time, 56.81. It's unbelievable. He's 3/10 faster in the second run.
Always bittersweet. A pilot, of course, is pleased when they can finish the day on a high note like this, but they walk away saying, why couldn't I have done that twice?
Well, we've had snow conditions in the first run, clear conditions in the second run. Look at the rudder tips. He was struggling to get through there. That's where Andre Longa turned. Look how high he is up near the lip. This is a great bobsled track. Look at the speed. Best speed down the track, and that's what you expect out of Mr. Zukov.
You want to translate that, John?
He's saying, I came off of 8 on 2 runners. I can't believe it.
Okay, next we've got an Austrian sled. First of 2 Austrians in the field.
Jürgen Lorca, Götzis, Austria.
Johannes Wipplinger.
Lorca and Wipplinger, 13th place after run number 1.
Austrians do well on this track. This kid came out of nowhere. He's always in 15th, 18th place. And the Austrian Federation said you need a top 5 finish to go to the Olympic Games in any race of the year. He did it in this race last year in Lake Placid. That's why you see him at our tees that are open screaming. And he got a chance to walk in Torino's Olympic Games because of his success on this track here. And there's an Austrian sled in second place at the end of the first heat.
John, let's take a minute to talk a little more about this track as we get ready for next weekend's Jeff Bodine event here on Speed. You grew up. Talk about how big bobsledding was in the 60s and 70s here in Lake Placid.
Well, you come out here to be crowds of 3,000 on Saturday or Sunday to watch American competitions. There'd be 20 sleds in the field, and of course back then there was no cable TV, and you know, everybody had.
It was a community sports event.
It was it. I mean, this is where everybody bonded on Saturday and Sunday morning. This was the place to go, and you know, then all of a sudden people had a lot more diverse things to do in life, and you don't get the crowds and the spectators as we used to. But boy, it's been building since they built this track back up.
That's right. They still have youth programs here in Lake Placid. Everyone tries to get involved. They have the opportunity if they want. As the Austrians come across, they do not take over the lead from the Russians. Currently in second place, and we will be back with much more right after this. We wish you all a happy new year here on Speed, and what a new year it will be for the bobsledders, John.
After New Year's, off to Cortina, another track that makes the bobsledders a little quiet. At the top, Eagles is pretty easy. Then the World Championships in St. Moritz, 2 consecutive weeks. Then back to Cesana, which is the site of the 2006 Olympic Games in Italy. Winterberg, Germany, another easy little track to get down, much like Salt Lake City. Kodaksy, pretty challenging track. Quite a tour the second half of the season. We'll have it for you on Speed.
And the Latvians are getting set to go now. This is Latvia sled number 2. The Russians, their neighbors to the east, hold the lead right now.
Little snow starting to change here. That little bit of snow doesn't seem like much, Tim.
But in the sport time to hundredths of a second.
You can definitely, and a little snow picks up here. Of course, the weather changes. You can blink your eyes around here. The weather can change. We could have a whiteout in the next 5 minutes.
And speaking of tracks around the world in this Latvian sled on course right now, there is a track in Latvia where the Russians and Latvians train and talk about building a track in Russia.
Well, they're talking about building 2 tracks in Russia, one in Moscow suburbs, and then one in Sochi, which is down in the Black Sea, which is an old famous Tsar resort, Stalin resort after that. And they're building on the 2014 Winter Olympic Games, and they're one of the front runners to get it. And they're talking about both of these tracks going under construction with or without the Olympic Games designation. Russia is going to emerge as a true winter sport nation. They don't have a winter sport training facility, and the Russians want to have one. They want to create their own St. Moritz. Russians also got a little bit more money than everybody thinks. And there's a 3/10 deficit. We told you that Zubkov would move up the ladder here with that great second run. And this young Latvian pilot, he's cutting some eye teeth on this track. I think he's very happy just to be down and finish.
Sure, 11th place after run number 1. He'll stay in the top 15.
Side by side, look how the Latvian sled's out of the picture. Russians, they both come over and bump. Russians had the best speed at that part of the track so far, and that's why they are in the leader's box.
Okay, second of 3 USA sleds. This is USA number 3, Mike Kahn and Alex Sprague. Now, as we meet Mike Kahn,
Chantilly, Virginia, USA.
I can tell you that they've had a disappointing start to the season in 2-man, 18th and 16th place, but keep in mind that this pilot, in fact this team, won a silver medal at the World Cup here last season.
Yeah. Mike, I think, is finding himself. He's been switching sleds, National Guard guy. And Alex, well, Alex been a little bit of, had a little different interest the last couple of months. He had his son, Sebastian, born on October 26th. And he's married to his wife, Andrea, and I think that might have changed the focus. That's what Mike Kahn's problem's been. It's a second straight heat, and he taps out of curve 1. It's over now. You make that type of mistake, you might be able to maintain your position here, but you aren't going to move up 6, 7 places like he needs to do in this run.
And given the success that Kahn has had on this track in the past, what do you chalk that up to? Just the arbitrary course setup on a given day?
Well, Tim, if you were out playing golf and you're shanking the ball in the woods
Never
every day,
happens. Never happens.
And all of a sudden you keep coming up to the first tee with a different driver every day, we know it's not the driver. Mike's been switching equipment up. I think he needs to stay with the same equipment, the same belief, just take everything else and stop. What he's trying to do now is trying to find time on the way down, and it's making it worse. If he just lets his talents go, he'll be back to where he was last year, which was silver medal in this track and this competition.
He moves back 5 spots by virtue of that second run time and will be hard pressed to stay in the top 12 at the end of the day.
He shakes his head. He knows. He's just in a slump. You know, everybody in every athletic sport goes through one, and he's too good an athlete to have this happen. Here's an 8. Little airborne there. Watch him climb to the top here, and look at that. Now look, it's way too much steering. Look at the way the nose of that sled's going down.
Headed down.
That's a lot of steering right there.
Well, Mike Kahn is done. Still another American and a Canadian set to go. We've got much more bobsled coming. Evgeny Popov of Russia waiting at the top. This was the scene last week on Speed in Park City, Utah.
He'd won a silver medal in Calgary, his first medal ever in bobsledding, followed it up in Park City with the gold. He is the surprise of the season to date, being pressured by Stephen Holcomb, who had never won a medal in bobsledding to the last 2 weeks, but he won it in 2-man. So I guess
Евгений Попов, Красноярск, Россия.
His big break man, Dmitry Stepushkin.
Stepushkin used to slide with Zubkov last year at this time, pulled a hamstring. Here they are down below. Don't think there's not a little mindset going on here, like Zubkov going, boy, I hope they screw up. We can't let these guys beat us again.
Always pride within the nations in this sport.
Russia 1, Russia 2 type capacity. And Stepushkin pulled a hamstring in December. Didn't go on to the Olympic Games with Zubkov. Zubkov's really struggled with this whole team thing. You know, one man's rags are another man's riches. Stepushkin here now with Popov is enjoying a great season.
He's aptly named brakeman Stepushkin. You step, then you push.
Tim, I'll talk to you about that later. Here's the comparison of the Russian, the leader at the bottom. Who gets in first? They look like robots. Look at the way these guys get down so quickly. Don't tell me those guys haven't practiced that to the exact steps.
You know, it's funny, back in the 80s when the Soviets slid in those familiar red sleds, they were the enemy, and now there always seems to be a little soft spot for the Russian program when they travel around the world.
Well,
nice guys.
A lot to do with Valery Lenchenko, their leader, who again passed away in April, and he was the heart and soul of the team.
And in many ways of the entire federation.
Yeah, he was everything. And how they're going to recover from that. But Popov has done it. The skeleton team has won a silver and bronze so far, the men's skeleton team. So they're still leaving off his tradition that he established. And there is a big victory for Zubkov. He knows he's probably not going to win a medal, but we beat Eugenie. That's all he cares about. If he can't win a medal, he wants to make sure he's ahead of this guy.
Well, John Morgan, as we take a look at this.
Whoa, that's some compelling video right there. You can't understand what the driver must feel like when he feels himself going into the sled, into that curve late, and the curve just sucks you up to the top. Look at the speeds. Zubkov with much better speed. Look at that. You think he'd won a medal right there, but of course he only beat his teammate.
You call the four-man sleds Cadillacs and these race cars.
Well, the two-man's a little not as long, of course not as heavy with the four guys. And it's a different vehicle. The two-man's a sports car, the four-man's a big truck. Sports car, you get in a little bit of trouble. You turn the wheel the opposite way, put your foot in the gas, it might come out of that skid.
Daniel Schmidt, the driver for Swiss sled number 2, 8th place after run number 1, and a sled built by the Olympic medalist and former driver and brakeman Christian Reich.
Back to the four-man. The four-man's like a big truck. Hard to get it into a skid.
Which is easier to crash?
The two-man's. Four-man's is tough to, once those four-mans get into a skid, though, it's tough to bring them back. But I dare say you'll see more four-man crashes than two-man, because once those four-mans, you lose control of them, they have a mind of their own.
And regain.
Yeah,
like a truck skidding on the highway.
That's it. You can't get it back.
Wow, look at the split time, John. 100th ahead. No one's been able to pass the Russians the last several sleds.
Well, Schmidt, he's vying to beat Evil Rube, of which he most likely will, because Rube's about 2,500 back on the Russians. And Schmidt's an upcoming driver, used to be a crewman. Last couple of years, he's been out on the circuit. Look at this, -2 to -5, big skid, 121.4. Very similar speed to the Russians. This is going to be another close one.
Finished 11th in the first race, 9th in the second race, and with this finishing time, he will do no worse than 8th place here.
Wow.
As he becomes the first sled out of several to finally top Russia number 1.
Might be his best finish ever. I think he's, listen, this is a big deal. He goes back to Switzerland now after 3 World Cups, knowing that he just blew away Evil Rube. And again, there's a race within a race in these countries' battles, let me tell you.
Especially with the World Championships coming up in Switzerland later this month.
Look at this shot. Schmidt, look at the speed he's got. That's why he had the big speed, had the skid there, but the speed allowed him to carry through. He made a mistake, but he's still the leader.
In 2 weeks here on Speed, the World Cup Tour will be in Cortina d'Ampezzo, Italy.
Simone Bertazzo, Piedicadore, Italia. Questo è il mio brakeman, Samuele Romanini.
And Bertazzo and company will play host on a very tricky track in Cortina, but for now they've got their sights set on perhaps moving into the top 5 here in the hybrid-built sled in Lake Placid.
Bertazzo's dad from the Cortina area, bobsled competitor for Italy. Joey had a great result, won a bronze medal here in this track last year in four-man. Of course, that was because Todd Hayes tipped over the curve right there. But still, this is really the hope for the Italians right here. And they give up a little, although his start times aren't that bad. He's got a chance. He's got 30/100s lead now, but he represents a traditional Italian bobsled pilot. Not that big, great eyes and hands. If you train in Cortina,
fearless, passionate.
Yeah, and he's got 30/100ths lead at Shady, 23/100ths lead, which he's losing time back. He's got a lot of time in the bank. He'll probably be the leader, no doubt, but the question is by how much? 23/100, so 23 at the chicane, 23 at the bottom. Good speed. Bertazzo shows why he's one of the top 10 in the world.
So the Italians take over the lead. And when we return, the final USA hope for a medal. They've won 2 so far this season. It's Stephen Holcomb and Brock Kreitzberg. Stick around on Speed. New Year's weekend in Lake Placid, New York, always an exciting time. Main Street is flocking with shoppers, and of course the Olympic Arena with skating exhibitions, public skating on the speed skating oval. Always a lot of fun to be had at the site of the 1932 and 1980 Winter Olympics. And John, we've also had some fun over the years in Monte Carlo.
Hey, Prince Albert of Monaco established bobsledding, and he did the 4 Olympic Games as a competitor. And here's
Patrice Servel, Monaco.
I think Patrice is a guard in the palace.
Not a bad gig to have. Probably good meals during the lunch break.
Well, the gig is right now. He's in 6th place here to the first heat. Had a top 10 result last week, or close to top 10 result last
11th
week.
place.
11th, he was 8th, slipped 3 places in the second run, driving one of these Christian Reich sleds. Now, we see a lot of guys with Christian Reich. He's the people want to buy his equipment. And, unlike the Bodine sleds, everybody likes to buy the Bodine sleds, but they don't sell them. It's for made in the USA and only for American athletes.
Okay, so I'm the German Federation, you're the Americans. I offer you $10 million for a Bodine sled. What do you say?
I think we better call Jeff Bodine.
Okay, let him be the final judge.
But German Federation's got its own private sled builder, FES Berlin, a technical company. Ooh, and Patrice is pretty sideways there, bangs hard twice. He had a 400ths lead, but that double bang there is going to cost him.
There are the Italians. They watch down at the bottom. This will be tight. Monaco crosses 200ths of a second off the pace. They will still remain in the top 10, so a good showing for the Monegasque.
Yeah, he was 7th. It's a great result for Patrice. He'll take it. Finished 4th in the World Championships in 2004, and hasn't regained that type of form, but what happened? What do you mean we lost by 200ths? Well, here's up in Curve 8. Look at these compelling pictures. Look at the way the sled splits. Look at the articulation. Look how high he climbs here. Is he going to dive? Not a bad line at all. Look at the way the head of the brakeman's flopping around in there. And here's the coach,
Bruno Magnon,
former French Olympic medalist. And into the finish, Bruno shaking his head. He knew that bottom part of the track wasn't what he wanted.
Final American sled now getting set at the top. Driver Steve Holcomb talked about his 5th place showing after run number 1. Getting ready with Brock Kreitzberg. I spoke with him moments ago.
Place after the first run. With your new lofty expectations, you're disappointed with that, I know. Is this a tough track? Is this a driving issue in the first run? What happened?
Yeah, definitely a driving issue. I had some troubles out of 3, which, well, actually I had troubles in 2, which messed up my 3, which slowed me down enough to put me back in 5th. It's disappointing, but all at the same time, I mean, 5th place is still one of the better finishes I've ever had. Before this year, 5th was my best, so I'm sitting in a good position, and plus, I'm right at less than 2/10 out of 2nd place. I'd rather be the hunter than the hunted, so it's going to go out and have a good run and try and pick up some time. So.
Its attitude is 80% of this sport, isn't it, John?
I like that. I'd rather be the hunter than the hunted. He's got a great attitude. Of course, 2 silver medals in the first 2 races of the year will do that. They did some early season training or testing on these Bodine sleds on this track in October. And obviously paid off well so far for Stephen Holcomb. And of course, we've seen some great medals so far. 2 goals by Shauna Roebuck and Valerie Fleming in their Bodines. Holcomb didn't have a good first run, and he's going to have to separate himself from the Russians at the bottom, the Italians at the bottom. 17 to 23, 100 clicks there, about 61 miles an hour, 62 miles an hour, smooth there. Going to need 121.5 or type speed here to really have a chance. He's got that, perfect through the chicane, 3100s now. He is really flying on the bottom. This is what you expect him to do in the first run.
Around the finish curve, the USA will take over the lead. No mistakes down there at the bottom. Look at that, by a half second,
wow.
56.45.
He just put his hand up in the air as he came across the finish line at 60 miles an hour. He knew he had a great run.
I said confidence and attitude is everything.
Look at him. Look at him. He knows it. See, this, it's unbelievable, his attitude now. I mean, in the past couple of years, he's still a young pilot.
It's interesting, sure. I mean, Todd Hayes, as we check out the replay, was the top USA pilot the last 5 or 6 years. And now Holcomb steps forward, fastest speed, and he really, to use a cliche, is rising to the occasion of being the top USA driver.
He's got great confidence in his equipment. Look at the coaches. They knew, too. I mean, hundredths of a second sport, but you know when you do well.
Americans in the lead, and the Canadians are next when we return. Pierre Lueders looks for another medal in 2-man. The success of the United States bobsled team comes thanks to hard work, some talented drivers and athletes, and of course what you see right there, the Bodine Bobsled Project. And of course the man that has been behind the Bodine Project for all of these years is NASCAR driver Jeff Bodine. Jeff, first of all, we go back 10 years. Why get involved?
Well, I found out our American athletes weren't using American-made equipment. I'm a proud American, proud of our country, and I just thought that was wrong and decided to do something about it.
Now, I know you always tell me you've got your sled experts to take care of this next question, but I'm going to put you on the spot anyway. Why have these sleds done so well?
Well, you know, a lot of reasons. You know, the testing that we've been able to do with sponsorships. You know, we're having a Bodine bobsled race, and that's all to generate some funds so we can get more money, so we can do more testing and give our kids the best equipment out there. But one thing is right here at Lake Placid, this track, our governor put money up to build it, and this track is open longer than any track in the whole world. So our kids are able to get out here and test. And this is a tough track, so they test on a very tough track, and it just makes them better athletes.
Now tell us a little bit more about this Bodine bobsled race. It was a lot of fun last year. What do people have to look forward to?
A lot of fun, a lot of action. Last year, Dick Trickle crashed twice. They named the corner, Trickle Corner. He's going to be back, but Boris said and Kevin LePage will be back. They were our winners. My 2 brothers are back this year. Brett wasn't here last year, but Todd and Brett will be both here. We actually have 2 drag racers. This is new in our venue, our race. Melanie Troxel and Tommy Johnson Jr. are going to be here. Drag racers driving bobsleds. We have a baseball player, Mike Greenwell from Boston. He's going to be up here driving. So we've changed things up a little bit just to make it a little more exciting.
More fun than danger, right?
I'm not sure about that.
Hey, well, we're going to look forward to that one. Thanks, Jeff.
You bet, Tim.
Well, those drag racers here, he says those drag racers could be dark horses in the competition. You'll see it all in speed January 6th and 7th.
Okay, we've got the Canadians coming up.
Alberta, Canada. This is my brakeman.
Lascelles Brown.
And Brown spoke earlier about the role of a brakeman.
This track is pretty tough. All the turns are, you know, like crazy. So I'm just trying to like sit tight in the sled and make sure I'm not moving around. Just sit tight and, you know, like ride the curves with the sled.
What does a brakeman think about duck down low like that?
When you're with a good driver, you have confidence. So all you're thinking about, you know, want to come down and see a number one finger, you know, up that you're in the first place.
One of the best brakemen in the world, that dude right there. And talks about riding the sled. There's a real talent for riding back there. If you're riding like a sack of potatoes, that's going to put the sled in skids, 100 here, 100 there. There is a secret talent. There's a skid there, though. I just noticed a skid there as they came out of those runner grooves. There's our leader at the top. It was American Steve Holcomb. Very surprised at that. I hope we get a shot of that. But that skid at the top of the track. Now he's got a 1200s lead.
Lueders has finished third in each of the first two races. Very consistent veteran now. And John, really, when all is said and done and he finally retires, this man will go down as one of the top 10 or so drivers in the history of the sport.
Oh, look how high he was there. +1. Holcomb at 121.5. Lueders doesn't have it. +2. He's holding it, though. Decent speed. This is going to be close. He still has a chance.
Final few curves. The Americans watch. The Canadians cross. It is the Americans as Pierre Lueders and Marcel Brown lose a 1/10 of a second on the bottom third of this track.
Well, I think he lost a lot of time up at the top. You know, there's start grooves for these things to run in. Look at the sled. See, the runners are in the start grooves. Now watch what happens here at the end of the grooves. Look at the skid. Look at that.
Wow.
That is right at the end of the grooves. So maybe Lascelles ran one step too far. Look at these compelling shots. You know, how does he feel about in the back of the sled there? He talks about some crazy corners. Well, that's a crazy corner right there.
And Pierre Lueders never happy at the bottom if he doesn't see that #1 finger that his teammate was talking about. Okay, here's Germany, #2, third place. We're down to the top 3. Matthias Höpfner, the driver.
Matthias Höpfner, Riesa, Deutschland.
That's from the old eastern part of Germany, the old East Germany program. 31-year-old veteran. The Americans continue to hold the lead. A wave from Brock Kreitzberg. Thumbs up, actually, from both of them. John, let's talk about the grooves. We just saw the Canadians with a problem.
He won't run so far. Watch, this is not the same type of team. Look how quickly they're in the sled way before that. I think they might, you know, Lascelles Brown is so powerful. He might be the best brakeman in the world with his sprinting abilities. He might have run a step too far there. These start grooves then, again, the warm conditions we've seen here, they've recut the grooves, but something happened there to Pierre Lueders and Lascelles Brown at the top of the track, and I'm telling you, that cost them a lot of time at the bottom. And this guy here, he gives up a lot of time at the start, but boys, he got some good eyes and hands. He won the event last year in Cortina in two-man, which solidified his spot in the Olympic team for the Germans.
100th of a second behind the Americans at the last split. Now 700ths. This could be a medal for the USA.
Watch out here in the bottom. Look at him snake through there. No speed. 120.9. He's a half a kilometer down. Doesn't sound like much in sport of hundreds of seconds. That's a lot.
The Americans watch. Will they win a medal? Yes, they do.
Wow.
The Germans fall back 2 spots. Right now, the USA is in first. Canada's in second with 2 sleds remaining.
Wow. Steve Holcomb now has got medals in all 3 events. He never had won a medal at all in any previous bobsled event in his life till this season. Now he's got at least 2 silvers and a bronze. Look at the way they snake through here. Now, look at Holcomb come through here. Both these sleds with the same track through there. But Holcomb had the better speed. That was relative to the better start time.
That German is finished. Another German still has work to do. It's Andre Lange getting ready at the top for another gold medal winning run. Happy New Year from Lake Placid. Tim Singer and John Morgan back here at the track.
Wolfgang Stampfer, Innsbruck, Auster. Und das ist mein Bremser.
The Americans have the lead down at the bottom. Just 2 sleds remain here in the World Cup bobsled race.
Well, Stampfer gets a 5:32 start time in the first run. Holcomb at a 5:17. 1500s at the top of the track. We say it's a multiplier effect of 3:45 at the bottom. Stampfer had the best heat of his year, maybe his life in the first run. He's never been in this position in two-man bobsledding. He's won a few medals in four-man. There's the same type of skid. The same type of skid the Canadians had. Out of the start grooves. And that will reflect, he's already got a deficient start time. Nowhere near the speed that Holcomb had.
And we'll really get an indication here with this split time. Right side of your screen, 600's back now.
Well, there's a big difference there. There was a total of 1,600s difference in the first run. That's down to 6 now. Now it's 50.
It's all over, right?
Now it's a dead heat. Stouffer perfect on the bottom. He might have a chance. Speed wasn't that great. But if he gets up 121.5, 121.6 here, he's got a chance. If he doesn't get that 121, he doesn't have a chance. That's it. Over. It's now, question is, how many spots is he going to fall?
So again, this is a two-heat race. You need to put two together. The Austrians have not. They cross the finish line. Answering John's question, they fall 4 spots. The Americans, all celebration down at the bottom. They've captured at least the silver. The Canadians are now in the bronze medal position. They hold the top 2 spots with 1 sled remaining.
Well, Wolfgang says, dang it, what happened? And I'm telling you, Wolfgang, it all happened up in the first 50 meters. Coming out of the start grooves, that ended his chance.
Final sled of the competition. He's won every heat in two-man. There's the brakeman, Kevin Kuska, the driver, Andre Lange, and the names, Eugenio Monti, Meinhard Niemer, Wolfgang Hoppe, Christoph Langen, and now add this man.
Now add this man. We've been talking about this guy too much. Look how quickly the brakeman gets in there. So they had no start groove problems. Kuska, 6'5", 235 pounds, looks like an NFL linebacker. What an athlete. But you notice the way those guys, look at the start times. 5:08 that they had in the first run. They were way better than everybody else. They did it here again, and they're both in the sled at the exact same time. What a machine.
Poetry in motion.
These two, and these guys crashed 2 days ago.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that. How tough is it mentally to come back and compete, not just compete, but compete at the highest level?
Highest level. With this type of start time, I'll guarantee you this Kuska is beat up. If you're riding in the back of a four-man sled and crash like this on this track, they went from curve 8 to curve 20 on their heads. He is beat up, but he comes out for 2 unbelievable start times.
Greatness in the sport of bobsled to the tune of Germany, sled number 1, Andre Lange, Kevin Kuska. They top the Americans and the Canadians once again, capturing their 3rd race in 3 attempts this season.
And Lange has not lost a heat yet, though. He's only 100th ahead of Holcomb in that run. But in the bank, over 40 gold medals now for Andre Lange.
The Americans' 3rd straight week in the silver medal position. The names are becoming familiar, but everyone's still continuing to chase Germany's Andre Lange. As we check out the rest of the top standings, 3 Americans ending up in the top 15 sleds. When we return, I'll be down to speak with the top finishers, and we'll have much more as Andre Lange and Kevin Kuska win here in Lake Placid.
Welcome back to Lake Placid. Andre Lange and Kevin Kuska up over the 40 gold medal count now in World Cup bobsledding. Today's program brought to you by Konica Minolta, official sponsor of the FIVT World Cup bobsleigh and Skeleton Series on Speed. Andre Lange, 3 golds in 3 races. Stephen Holcomb, 3 silvers in 3 races. Pierre Lueders, the Canadians, same type of medal count for him. Here's the rest of the field, the top 15 in World Cup standings. Next time we'll see a two-man bobsled will be in Cortina. Let's go down to the interviews with Tim Singer.
There's a look at the medalists here in Lake Placid. In third place, Pierre Lueders, Lascelles Brown. You guys came down, not in first place. Did you think you were out of the medals for a time there?
Well, you know, after the first heat, we had some problems, definitely. We had some problems. I think I was a little bit early on the start, and the sled popped out of the grooves, and pretty much the whole time Lascelles was trying to put it in. So sort of affected our top, velocity, and just, really the run wasn't that bad, but I just knew we were going to be a lot faster at the start of the second one.
And another medal for Canada. Second place, third straight race. Second place for USA #1, driver Stephen Holcomb. And Steve, it's a great job to start the season, but can anyone catch the man on your lap?
It's going to be hard. He's tough. I mean, he's the best in the world by far. I mean, he's 40-something wins, gold medalist. He's unbeatable, but we're catching him. We're going to get him one of these days, eventually. He should watch out.
And a great job once again for Steve and Brock. And Germany won, USA won, and Canada won the medals here in Lake Placid.
Great weekend so far for the United States. In skeleton, they won first, second, third in the men's, gold and silver in the women's. They're a two-man bob. We had Steve Holcomb with a silver medal, his third straight in his Bodine sled. The women are coming up next on speed. They've got 2 golds so far out of 2 races. Great start for the year for the United States Bobsled and Skeleton Federation. Pretty shocking, actually. So for all my FIBT television team, my colleague Tim Singer, I'm John Morgan. We'll see you the next time on Speed. Two-man bobsledding will be from Cortina, Italy. Women's bobsled coming up from Lake Placid. See you there.
Racing on the edge.
Four-man bobsledding on speed as Russia's Evgeny Popov looks to continue his winning ways. And later, we'll preview today's Bodine Bobsled Challenge from Lake Placid.
Racing on the edge. It's like a fine line between nice and finer. Racing on the edge. Racing on the edge.
The Lake Placid segment of the World Cup Bobsled Tour concludes with the four-man competition from Mount Van Hovenberg. Hi, everyone. Tim Singer, along with John Morgan, on a very busy day of bobsledding in Lake Placid. And here's a look at the four-man favorites and one notable absentee.
Andre Lange, the gold medalist from last year's Torino Olympic Games. Look at this crash in practice. 70 miles an hour with your head upside down. A couple of Lange's teammates are hurt, but not this guy, Evgeny Popov. He's tied with Lange for the World Cup lead. He'll finish ahead of Lange no matter what happens because he's in the race. He won the gold medal last week in Salt Lake. And Pierre Lueders, he's third in World Cup points. More competitive in the two-man than the four, but every once in a while, Pierre gets up in that podium in four-man bobsledding. And now Alexander Zubkov,
Olympic silver medalist, won this race last year.
He's chasing his teammate. He's a little perplexed about results so far. Steve Holcomb, he's got 3 silver medals so far, two-man bobsledding in his Bodine sleds, but he's got a problem in four-man.
And there's Andre Lange. He'll be a spectator for today's competition after winning the two-man event last weekend here on Speed. There's a look at the World Cup standings. Lange and Popov are tied. Steve Holcomb, the top American, in 5th place as they all look to add to the World Cup totals today in search of it season-ending championship. Good crowd on hand here in Lake Placid, and they'll be watching some fierce action on a fierce track.
1,455 meters track, almost a mile long. You can see the start record, Andre Lange, and the track record.
World Championships in 2003 here.
Well, he's got his stamp on a lot of tracks like this around the planet. Lake Placid, but he's not in the competition. So Lake Placid got him.
Would you call this the most feared track or one of the most feared tracks in the world?
I think Altenburg, Cortina, those two are the tracks. There's that fear factor, the man versus the mountain on the top of the track. Here's cliffside curve. A lot of these other tracks, there's no fear on top of the track, and I think that's the difference between the three top tracks and the rest is that fear factor. Here's some fear. Devil's Highway. This is where Longa tipped over right here. In this curve, couldn't get it back up, went into that curve there upside down. Then he went to the bottom part of the track on his head. Now, Labyrinth three-quarter combination. Speed 75 plus right here. Benham's Bend, big exit downhill into the chicane, long straightaway. Tricky through here. Big pressure left, 4 G's of force. Remember Dick Trickle tipping over in the Bodine bobsled right here. He tipped over twice in that part of the track. This is a challenge, Tim.
And these bobsledders will take that challenge when we return. It's run number 2 from Lake Placid coming up in a moment as FIBT World Cup continues on Speed. Welcome back to Mount Van Hovenberg, Lake Placid, New York, where World Cup bobsledding is being brought to you by Konica Minolta, the official sponsor of the FIBT World Cup Tour. And earlier today, it was an exciting run number 1 of competition in the World Cup 4-man.
The silver medalist from last year's Olympic Games. Remember, the gold medalist has already crashed, not in the competition. Here's the silver medalist in the bottom part of the track, Alexander Zubkov. Horrific crash. He's fine. But one of his teammates had to go to the hospital. He will not compete.
Stephen Holcomb, as John mentioned, 3 medals so far this season in 2-man, and he finds himself in the top 5 in today's 4-man competition.
Had a really good run going about 2/3 the way down the track. Lost a lot of speed in the bottom. Here's a surprise. Fabrizio Tosini has never won a World Cup World Championship medal. And he is in great medal position now with 2 big guns out of the competition. Matthias Hafner, he can smell a podium. In fact, he's always been chasing Zubkov and Longa. This could be his day to shine.
The top 2, the same as they were last week in Park City. Second place from Latvia, Jānis Mīnins.
Well, he won a big medal last week. His second medal ever, a bronze. And the young Latvian looks poised to strike the podium one more time.
But how about this guy? What a season Popov is having in the 4-man.
He was in the shadow of Zubkov the last 4 years. Last week in Park City, though, gold medal. Here in Lake Placid, he's got a big lead.
How big a lead? We check out the standings after run number 1, and Popov and Russia number 1, 0.4 of a second ahead of the Latvians, the Germans, Italy, and USA number 1. There are 3 American sleds in the field, 1 Canadian, Pierre Lueders, currently in 7th place, and we'll see them all here. In the second heat of competition, Zubkov will not compete in run number 2. As far as the conditions, it's a fairly mild day here. Remember, still ahead as we check out the jury. We've got the U.S. National Championships and the Bodine bobsled event, but we're turning our attention to 4-man World Cup bobsledding. You ever remember it this warm, this time of year?
Very mild winter to date.
Austria, number 2. To lead things off, Lowacker, the driver.
He's been in this 15th place mode in four-man.
A couple of 18th places to start this season. This is the country that as recently as 1992 won an Olympic gold medal in four-man bobsledding.
Ingo Appelt, he retired. Wolfgang Stampler has been their hope. Wolfgang, once in a while, does well. He was in second place in the two-man Lake Placid event, but fell to 4th in the second run.
World Cup bobsledding, I remind you once again, is a 2-heat combined time competition. So the time you see for Austria 2 is being added on to their first heat time. You need to have 2 clean runs if you want to compete in the sport.
And look at these compelling pictures. I'm telling you, look at the heads bobbing in the back. That's the G-forces. If you think this is easy, I'm telling you, just watch the next 45 minutes of coverage here. These are pictures that just speak for themselves.
Around the finish curve, this is the Rabbit of run number 2, setting the mark. The other sleds will try to beat a 57.59 for the second run, and a 2-heat combined time, putting them into the early lead here in Lake Placid. Much more to come. Stick around for more bobsledding on Speed.
I'd like to offer you a ride down your beautiful track here in Mount Von Hohenberg. It's a deal.
As soon as he learns how to drive a little better.
I knew there was a catch.
And that was the scene yesterday here in Lake Placid as Jeff Bodine presented a jacket and an offer for a bobsled ride to New York State Governor George Pataki, who didn't accept that offer. But everyone's getting excited about the Bodine Bobsled Challenge. But the four-man World Cup continues here. And this sled comes from Switzerland. Swiss number 2, Danielle Schmidt, the driver.
Schmidt, pretty good result in the two-man competition. He beat his teammate Ivo Rube, goes back to Switzerland to their Swiss championships as Swiss number 1 of the World Cup circuit. But the Swiss, they've got a large deck of cards of competitors over there that they'll shuffle up, and they'll spit out some guys for the second half of the circuit. And of course, the World Championships are on their home track in St. Moritz. Expect some Swiss athletes to do very well there.
Well, this driver has a pair of 15th places so far this season. That is not going to make noise for the World Championships, especially if Martin Annen comes out of retirement to compete at the Worlds.
I think Martin is in semi-retirement, and in the new year, I think we're going to see him back out.
Well, they have a big lead in that split time. You see the green, minus 1.27. That is because that Austrian sled had so much trouble in run number 1.
Whoa, he was late there in that trickle turn, as we like to call it. The Austrians just waved goodbye. And Daniel Schmidt will occupy the leader's box for at least one more sled.
A pad of the sled. Always nice to get down safely no matter where you end up in the final leaderboard. 153.43, John.
Going back to Europe without tipping over. I'm sure he's very happy of that. I mean, believe me, this is man against the mountain first. You get to the bottom and go, oh, by the way, where'd I finish?
Now, you mentioned going back to Europe. That's just what this circuit is doing after this race.
After the new year, it goes to Cortina. Oh, that'll take a toll on you. Eagles, pretty easy track above Innsbruck. 2 weeks of the World Championships in St. Moritz, Switzerland. That's a nice assignment. Then Cesana, which is where the Torino Winter Olympic Games were last year, up to Winterberg and Sauerland, northern Germany, then down to the south of Germany to Bavaria, Königssee. Nice circuit coming up. It'll all be on speed.
Here is Czech sled number 1.
Ivo Danilevič, Jablonec, Česká republika, a to je můj tým.
Jan Stopáska.
Roman Gomola. Honza Kobián.
13th place, the brakeman, Big Jan Kobian, the veteran of the entire World Cup bobsled circuit. He's been around longer than anyone. There's a look at him.
Lost a little bit of hair in the last 14 years, but let me tell you something. This guy is still a specimen. I mean, he is about 225 pounds of solid. That guy is fit. These Czechs don't get great results like we saw him in the late 90s.
Had a couple of experienced drivers back then, and who was it? Pavel Polanski. That's right.
Pavel Polanski was
Jerry Jamura.
Yeah, and now we're down to this team who, you know, they don't get the starts. They don't know how to drive. I think they just like the circuit, to be honest with you. Of course, we just saw what the circuit's like. Cortina, St. Moritz, Berchtesgaden, Königssee, not so bad of a selection of venues there.
Good run at work here for the Czech Republic as they get midway down with a 1500s lead over the sled from Switzerland.
Down to 14, he's in a skid sideways, and you don't want to get these big 4-man sleds sideways on the speed part of the track, but he's got 120 kilometers. That was a good sign.
Around the finish, the Czech Republic won. The only Czech Republic sled, 200ths of a second.
200ths of a second. The Czechs hold on. That's 2 fingernails. So take a look at one of your fingernails. Double that, and that's what after 2 miles of distance, the Czechs just won by.
So an early lead for Czech Republic 1. A lot of sleds, including 3 American sleds, still to come from Lake Placid. Stick around. A lot more bobsledding coming your way here on Speed.
Racing on the edge. Racing on the edge.
This is the 2-time Olympic Village of Lake Placid, New York, World Cup 4-man bobsledding. And next up, the sled from Latvia, number 2.
Michals Arhipovs, Sigulda, Latvia.
Now Arhipovs comes from Sigulda, as he just mentioned, the site of the only bobsled track in the former Soviet Union.
Just turned 22 years old, and the Latvians are putting a lot of money down on this kid to do well in the future. They need somebody to push Janis Minnis, who's in second place right now in this 4-man competition.
I don't know if Minnis...
Start time, look at that, that's a great start.
I don't know if Minnis needs much pushing. He's doing pretty well this year.
Third in Park City, second at the end of this first heat here in Lake Placid. You've got somebody this young and this athletic. Now it's just about trips, coaching, confidence. And confidence, it'd be easy to get confidence on the easier tracks, but here in Lake Placid, this is a challenge. Look at that head slapping around.
How they set up those runners differently for different situations.
Well, runners are about rocks. You know, when you put the runners face to face, you're only going to see an inch of the runners that come in contact with the ice. And some people like the rock a little bit different, longer, more forward, more back for different tracks. But you only get 2 sets of runners to work with now. They've standardized the rules of runners in the FIVT the same way they do in NASCAR with tires.
Latvia, too, with a 1/10 of a second lead over the Czech Republic at the end of the run. They actually lost quite a bit of time on the bottom part of the track.
He'll live another day. He's in first now. I don't know how many sleds he's going to move up on, but this is a guy you're going to see a lot of.
And quickly going at the top here, it's USA number 3. Stefan Bosch, the driver, alongside Ben Fogel, Tim O'Meara, and Jeremy White.
Push bars out, came in.
10th place after run number 1. This team's still getting their feet wet.
Well, they don't get the start time. Stefan Bosch is the master of high speed and part of the bottom part of the track. He's 3,500s down now. For most teams, that's no chance. You might bring it back a couple tenths, but Bosch in the first couple World Cups of the year has shown everybody. On the bottom part of the tracks, he gets these Bodine sleds flying and always ranks up there in the top speeds. So at the next clock, he's down to 24. He's brought it back 1100s.
Yeah, that's a little too.
Oh, that's huge speed, though. That's 3 kilometers better than the Latvians. That's huge speed. This is what Stefan Bosch, the former junior world champion for Germany, now living in Park City, does.
Across the finish, can they hold on to the lead?
Wow.
I'm perplexed.
Look at Scheimer's expression.
I think Ryan Scheimer's surprised. Where did they find all that time at the bottom?
Half second of time on the bottom part of the track. Nobody does that. That speaks volumes of the eyes and hands that Stefan Bosch has got. He knows how to point these Bodine sleds in the right direction. Great driving. Watch the way you come through the chicane here. This is the graveyard of time. You'll see nobody come through this better than that right there. Look at the speed. Wow. Couple. Almost a full kilometer better than everybody else. And Brian Scheimer says, we'll take that.
Well, the USA will continue its interest to the top of the track. We check out the standings with one American in the lead, but another is getting ready to go. When we return, it's USA 2 and Mike Kahn. So stick around. A lot more bobsledding coming your way from Lake Placid.
Racing on the edge.
Here in Lake Placid, Mike Kahn, USA 2, getting ready at the top. Earlier, Kahn made a special presentation.
Jeff Bodine, I want to thank you for your commitment and persistence and efforts over the years in making these sleds the fastest sleds in the world. Can't thank you enough. But there's something more. I've got a check I want to donate to the Bodine Bobsled Project for $10,000, and I wish I could take credit for it, but it comes from a lot of good people in Northern Virginia that helped raise this money, and hopefully we can continue to build these sleds and make them even better over the next 3 years. I just can't thank you enough for your commitment. I know it's a small drop in the bucket in our sport because it's so expensive, but because of you, you've inspired me to want to contribute, and hopefully other people will step in and step up too. So thank you very much, and let's get moving.
Thank you, Mike. We want to thank you for your commitment, all the athletes' commitment